Welcome to Trust the Journey. I'm Jason Miletsky.
And I'm Melanie Curtis.
Our mission is to live, laugh, love, and learn together with you.
We're here to create conscious connections, to grow and contribute through our practice of openness, honesty, vulnerability, humility, and trust. Trusting the entire journey.
If you want to find us on the wider internet, you can reach us at trustthejourney.today. That's our website, and it's also our handle at any of the social streams that are out there.
Yeah, right on, family. Thank you so much for being with us. Here we go. All right, guys. So today in this episode, we're talking about growing older while staying younger, whatever that means, right? Growing up while not growing old. How do we stay true to our inner child and integrate that youthful spirit into our adult lives? So yeah, a pretty cool topic, I think, today. I feel like I want to let you go for it and jump in because actually Jay brought this to the table. But before we do that, I want to say happy birthday to Jason Miletsky.
Thank you, Mel. So obviously, thank you very much. The time of the year being my birthday, just yesterday, was what had spurred the thought. We were always bantering. We've got a topic list that we're going back and forth on. Which one are we going to choose this week? And I just had this feeling. I mean, like, I really love getting older in a sense that I love growing up. I love becoming more mature. I love being in this mindset of like life is getting easier. It's getting figured out rather than I'm getting old. My life is ending, closer and closer to death all the time, in a stuck state of mind, more in this state of mind that as I get more mature and that more opportunities arrive, that life becomes easier and easier and more predictable. And there's just a state of ease that's come with getting older in life. And at the same time, that kind of inner knowing that you're growing through this course of existence that we call life, as humans, that we know so little about, even though it's us doing it. Yeah. Is the whole point is to not grow old, that it's to just allow our true curious child to have the handlebars when it comes to the bigger picture decision making about what to enjoy and how to spend our time, but let the mature version of ourselves kind of like pick it's like we have two pilots, right? We're going on a road trip, and one side of us has to make sure that we're putting the oil in the car and they're putting gas in the car and that we're staying on the road and we're not driving in bad conditions and making smart decision making. And the other part of us wants to sing songs and listen to music and tell stories and do road games and all kinds of stuff like that. And maybe even the child mind gets to be like, let's go there, and off we go and we detour. But the adult side really has to have the wheel, for the controlling the bigger part of the vehicle. So
yeah, I've always said and believed, as a younger person, I don't think I was conscious of this. If I reflect on my life experience and life path and just myself as a growing person, both young and growing older, I've always said and believed that fun is a value worth prioritizing. As in, it's important to play. It's really a good thing and a healthy thing for us to play and lean in and enjoy our youthful spirit, however it might come up for us. I also absolutely balance that thought with, if that's all that we do and our life is only the fun and we don't ever prioritize or we neglect the quote adulting side of life, then we theoretically set ourselves up for pain, breakdown, bigger life challenges that would preclude us from having fun. So it's like, in a way, adulting and taking care of things and not neglecting our bills, our health, the oil in the car, like those types of things that are theoretically quote unquote not fun, they absolutely underpin our ability to have the most fun possible in life, in my experience. And so, given I connect those sort of unfun tasks to my ultimate, like it sounds kind of convoluted, but really and truly, I connect them because I believe fun is a value worth prioritizing. It helps me balance my value of hard work and my wild, intense drive to produce and create and work. So reflecting on that, I always like to really say that and share that of like, okay, cool, fun is a value worth prioritizing. Well, what does that mean? How do we then access that for each of us? You know what I mean? So I would ask you that question right now just to see what you have to say about that.
Yeah. In my life, I've been a person who's made a lot of choices towards a playful existence. Sometimes very much choosing to sacrifice a lot of what would most of us would be consider stabilities in order to prioritize fun, in order to prioritize a lifestyle which it has an everyday active engagement towards activities that are purely just about being present and in that moment and flow. And it's got a catch 22 to it. It's wonderful to be able to play all the time and to like just be snowboarding every day or just be surfing every day or just be making art every day or just be swooping every day. Whatever your thing is that you like to do that you want to spend your time on, that's it's wonderful to have that as an all the time. But if the other side doesn't have the support structure in place to maintain everything, then you have sacrifices. And as a child, that true child mind, we aren't aware of what's needed. We don't have the awareness that comes with maturity to know what do we really need to do to make sure that our house is kept in order. And I say our house, I mean our life, like our relationships, our sense of self-care, our needs for long-term. When I say long term, I mean looking out for our own future, our own best interest. All those things are left up to our parents when we're children, and we're just free to roam, right?
Yeah.
And so we have this thing where we're taught when we're very young that we're going to grow up, we're going to get older, and we're going to take over this responsibility of being the ones who like are making sure that everything's kept in shape and it's all running. And in some delusional world, we end up with this idea that means leaving all the play behind
Right.
in order to do all the adulting. And I think one of the examples that we're very fortunate to have, that we're very fortunate around to have around us is people like yourself, Melanie, who I compliment very highly because I see your work ethic versus the play, and many others in our community. I have so many really mature adult friends that are able to be world traveling while still running a business and avidly engaging family and clients and taking care of themselves and making sure that they're playing really hard all the time. And by playing really hard, I mean, maybe you spend the day hiking on a mountain or wandering a beautiful forest trail or paddling or paragliding or whatever it might be. But at the same time, they're like, can't come out to play today, guys. Got to go to work and off to
Yeah.
do the thing.
Yeah, the balance of that is huge. In my experience, it's huge. It's super huge. And as we just said, and I reflected when I was thinking about this episode and this topic. What is fun for each of us is a thing, so answering that question, bringing awareness to that. It might be hiking on a mountain, it might be going dancing, it might be whatever. And I was thinking about my job when I worked at Skydive Elsinore, and even as a skydiving boogie load organizer. I would always really feel like part of my job was to help really and truly facilitate fun. So whether it's in the skydiving realm and helping people, enjoy the jumps or enjoy the day, making jokes on the ground. Like, I really am so grateful for some of my funniest friends and coaches back in the day because I feel like they helped me be more like grow into a more being a more fun person, at least the way I define that, like I really love jokes and comedy and this and that. And so I bring that to sort of my work style when it comes to that role of fun facilitation. So anyway, where I'm going with this is also part of it is there's that party lifestyle in skydiving, and there's a lot of theme parties and costumes, and I think that's really fun and creative. It doesn't necessarily mean you're like partying big style. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't, but that was a big part of my job was to like get in costume before anybody else so that it was socially okay to like go and get your costume on. I would go and make sure, and I love to dance. I like to have fun. I'm not embarrassed to put on a costume. I really think that's fun and cool, and I have no problem doing that. But I recognize sort of in reflection about that job that it helped people step into that version of fun in that particular role, if that makes sense. So whether it's joining a community or whether we create the fun ourselves in a solo hike or what, you know what I mean? So it's more like just reflecting on cool, there are loads of different ways to have fun. What is it for each of us? And if we do care to be a leader in terms of facilitating fun, how would we want to do that? Do we want to invite people on a hike? Do we want to, you know what I mean? Because it doesn't have to be like my job at Skydive Elsinore as a boogie load organizer. It just happens to be that's the version of fun I facilitated then. But the bigger, broader idea of cool, we can actually initiate fun in lots of different ways, and it makes me go awesome, let's think about that and answer that for ourselves.
I have a great example right now that just it really bubbled to the surface in the last couple seconds.
Cool.
And I was relating back to my experience as a tandem instructor. I spent a number of years taking people for their first skydives using a tandem skydiving assembly. So skydivers know you put one person in front of the other, and the person in front wears a harness, and the person in back wears the parachute, and the instructor would be the person in back, and that was me. And part of that, in that role, I was lucky enough to work at places where the character, the way that we did things was all about having a great time. And it was about making it the best experience possible for the students, and the videographers and the tandem instructors and the packers would all work together to have this really up and fun experience for everyone. And it made work a joy.
Yeah.
It was just so much fun to go do it all the time. And in that situation, we weren't so much teaching people, we were sharing, right? And so what we were doing was taking people along at a very low level of necessary education to be able to participate in the sport that we loved, this adventure that we love called skydiving, and say, here, this is what skydiving is all about. Let me show you, right? Let me share this with you. Let us share this with you so that you can experience what we experience all the time. And what a wonderful thing to be able to share, because people's eyes light up. They get full of this emotion. They see all this part of life and being alive that isn't always just readily available, that we just don't pick up on it. And you get up in the sky and you're like, wow, amazing.
Yeah.
So here's what's changed, right? That was, it becomes kind of a carnival ride because you're just sharing. You're not actually teaching them to skydive. And in the difference of taking somebody and actually teaching them how to skydive on their own, then we're truly sharing the love for something in its entirety. And that learning, watching them learn, is fun. And I enjoy that very much in my job of the last decade, which is teaching people how to fly parachutes, right? And in watching people's learning curve and their evolution, that sharing of knowledge that and this concept of learning is fun is so powerful. And what I see with this, here's this little effervescence on the top of this thought, was that in Trust the Journey, what do we feel is learning is fun.
So
The
fun.
whole point of this is it's fun, right? Like my own growth experience in being a member of this community and part of this family and engaging the idea of learning is fun. That's like, okay, this is not going to always be easy. I'm going to have stumbles. I'm going to have fumbles. Sometimes we'll do great and get an A plus and ace a paper. And other times we'll get a complete fail and bomb. And the process of learning is really, I know for me, I love learning. It's so engaging, and not just myself, but learning with others, being involved in a process that carries that into the limelight, and we celebrate collective learning,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can't possibly agree more. I think what's so cool about learning and growth is that it and the frame of learning being fun and growth being fun. Like, of course, certain parts of growth aren't necessarily quote unquote fun. Deep healing, just saying, throwing out a shout out to the deep healers with you out there. Um, but the idea of learning being fun is that it's always this adventure into the unknown. Like if we're learning something, it's new to us. There's that electricity, that enlivening nature of that newness of learning that's just inherent. And for me, I find that really fun. Some people, I think, get scared by that, like get sort of nervous about the unknown and this and that. And that's part of the job thing that I was describing earlier as being this person who helps people facilitate fun. Some parts of that are helping people feel more emotionally safe, which sounds kind of weird, but that's where like being inclusive and friendly and welcoming sets a foundation for people to be able to let go and have a great time, feel like they're accepted and liked and loved for who they are, and that they have the freedom to play. And so that's the thing, like freedom, and that's an enlivening space to be in too. So it's all kind of connected, but I like that in terms of how do we have more fun, or how do we stay in a youthful spirit? How do we keep our inner child alive in that really positive, playful way as we grow into quote adulthood? I love the idea of reflecting on that for ourselves. How can I feel more emotionally safe? How can I feel like I'm in this presence and community of like minds and like hearts where I feel accepted and free? And that's a huge part of what we're doing with Trust the Journey. And I love that. The whole intro of like, oh, we're here to create conscious connections. Well, fuck yeah, we are. Because that is such an underpinning of so much value in life, at least from my perspective. And so that's why just one of the reasons that excites me so much to be a part of this family as well. Um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I want to give you space to comment on that because I love that
I'll
idea.
give you one. When we're children, our reality is generally limited to like the circle that's within our reach. And I know in the era when I grew up, my reach was literally my block or my group of friends at the school. I didn't have the internet, and my family reach had some extension. So I'd have like cousin groups, that are a further distance away geographically. But generally, it's like who's immediately in your vicinity. And then now that's no longer the case. And especially in this modern day and age where we have technology, we can just basically reach anywhere across the whole world.
Sorry,
And
I just have to interrupt you for a second. I was just laughing because you're like, I didn't have the internet. I'm like, we're both so old. Talk about getting old. We're like,
yes,
we didn't have the
no,
internet.
there was no internet. No.
Imagine for the younger people listening.
Yes, it's true.
That's
Born
killing me.
before
I'm
the
sorry.
internet.
I'm like, I can't not laugh at that. Back in the day when we didn't have the internet. Hey, I'm with you. I can make fun of us because I was there. Boom. All right,
True.
sorry, go ahead. You had your
Here's
block, no internet. Sorry about
Yeah, well,
that.
your comment about creating conscious connections. Okay, so as children, we walk out into the street or into the schoolyard or wherever our place in the world is, and we basically just stand there and look around, and whatever we can see within our distance, within our field of vision, is our opportunity or potentiality, right? And if we don't see anybody else, then it's just us. And then, well, if there's other children in that range and we see another child and we're like, I wonder if they're nice or not, or are they like me or not? Will I like them or not? And there's this experience of being like, oh, I don't know if I want to or not, or maybe you're very engaging, maybe very shy, introvert or extrovert. But the reality is, you don't really know what or why. You're just kind of there, forced into this social situation, and you find your way along. Now, as we get a little older, we're consciously choosing when we put our hand up to be involved in a group.
Yeah.
At least to me, that's growth. Like that's mature decision making, right? I'm not just becoming a member of a culture or a community out of pure luck. I'm choosing into it in some way or another. I walk through that door. I pick up that phone. I make the connection on the internet. I choose to become a member of Trust the Journey family. Whatever it is that I choose into, and I say, okay, these are people that I think have similar values to me, regarding some certain set of context.
Yeah.
And it may be, for me, that's got all these different diverse layers. Like I have friends that I'm only friends with because they like cars. And
Right.
the only thing that we have a middle ground in is cars because we can relate to that one topic. And I keep those friendships are limited to that kind of slim window. But when we're choosing our connections more broadly and saying, okay, where do I want to have deeper engagement? What are the things that are truly of value to me? Is when we choose to either step into our community working groups, our podcast listening groups, or activist groups, or church groups, whatever it is that we're picking our people per se. I'm saying
Yeah.
these are people I identify with. They're like me, or I want to be like more like them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I think that's huge. I joke about this a lot, being like, "Oh, I'm so glad I'm 41 years old. Thank God." You know? Like that's like a joke about getting older, but that's in full recognition of that maturity piece that does contribute to our ability to choose into and and decide what we're going to do in terms of our playfulness, in terms of our values, in terms of whatever, how we connect, where we find and acknowledge that we have the most fun. Um, I bring that up because I just believe and have experienced that I don't know about you, but like if you're you can we can always learn stuff from a haphazard experience, so we can learn from just looking around and going into something like we would have maybe as a kid on the playground and not really knowing what to do. So theoretically there's possibility there, right? So someone could argue like, well, if you just are choosing, really you're maybe missing out on all these other things because you couldn't think about it or you didn't know that was there. And so basically a call to open-mindedness, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I acknowledge that. uh, I simply like that we are highlighting the self-awareness piece. You know what I mean? Like the self
Yes.
awareness piece of going, this is something I want to do that I think is going to be fun. I said dancing earlier, and I've mentioned this before, but like I like dancing. I really like dancing. I like the physical movement. I like the community. I like the connection and partner dancing and stuff like that. And I find that really fun, creative, it's enlivening. So that's something I like to do. But someone else might be like, "Are you fucking kidding me? There's no way you'll get me on a dance floor. It's hell for them." You know what I mean? So I acknowledge that too. But I'm glad I have the self awareness and the willingness to choose into that type of fun potentiality versus going, well, I guess I'll just, I don't know, go to the community board and see what's happening. Like that, there's value in that too. But anyway, I'm sort of rambling on this, but I tend to like the idea of leaning into specificity that comes from that earned self awareness in maturity.
It's a very valuable point that you put in there about I'm choosing something I like to do, and it doesn't matter if I know somebody who's doing it or not. It's about if there's something that you're interested in, and even if it's just curiosity, it doesn't have to be something you're already doing or you're already good at or you've done before. The curiosity is the point, right? So if I've never done something before and I'm like, I want to try this because I've been thinking about it and it pops up in my mind, now I'm just going to go and I'm going to start trying it in whatever way that means. Maybe getting some information first, maybe getting some instruction, maybe finding a group, maybe just going to wherever that is and starting to do it. And you're going to find the other people who also like to do that. And that is going to lead to that connection, that finding like minded souls who have a common interest. And it almost always rolls over into some other area of spirituality, in my opinion, that there's some part of our core values that is identified in the things that we choose to do. It's where we are at energetically. You know, if I'm saying, all right, I've always wanted to go surfing. I've never surfed before. I've lived, inland America my whole life, and now I'm moving to the coast so I can become a surfer because I want to learn to surf. And so you take a job somewhere, you move to a coast somewhere, and then you just start going. Well, you're going to meet other surfers and you're going to have to do it a bunch and you're going to get your butt kicked by the waves and you're going to have all the learning curve that goes along with it. But eventually you'll meet other surfers and you'll start making more friends and you'll start to surf better. And part of that the spiritual part of whatever it is that you're engaging in this example, it's surfing, is going to start to become you. You're going to start to become it. And it starts to commingle and entangle in our energetic beings. And it sets our tone. And when I say that, it's kind of, some people would call it an aura.
Yeah.
And it's about like who we are and what we represent, where our value sets lie. As a young person, I always thought an aura was like more about kind of this static state of energy that exists around us all the time. And in some ways, it is a state of energy that's there all the time, but it's not static. It's actively changing depending upon whether we're in a state of like expressing joy and happiness or whether we're in a state of sadness or grief or anger or whatever the emotional underpinning is to our circumstance. And so I guess this is where I'm tying in our choice into self-creation
I love
and
it.
in choosing things to do that nurture our child mind, which is the curious mind that's like, this looks interesting. This looks fun. This maybe it looks hard. Maybe it's really scary. Maybe I have no idea about it. But in choosing into those opportunities, we basically adjust our frequency to something that's outward pinning of growth, of openness, of being willing to make some mistakes and just being there and really shining. You can see that shine, right?
Yeah. One of my core mentors is Elizabeth Gilbert. And this could tie into job search. It could tie into any version of life transition. It definitely, I think, ties into fun and playfulness and nurturing our inner child. But Elizabeth Gilbert really stands for like, oh man, find your passion, find your passion. No, she stands for where are you curious? And lean in to that curiosity because that most of the time, as you point to, connects to something in us that we haven't fully explored, but something inside us in that we can't quite discern how and why it knows it wants to go that direction. But if we listen and we have the courage to go into that unknown direction without attachment to outcome, maybe it's nothing, you know what I mean? But maybe our curiosity leads us to a different career where we have fun and we feel enlivened because we are electrified in curiosity about whatever that topic may be. This ties back to also to my skydiving coaching and how I always was like, fun and excellence are not mutually exclusive. Not only are they not mutually exclusive, I contest that fun is a magnifier to success. In every skydiving team that I ever coached or was a player coach for, it was a crucial element of our culture as a team that we had a freaking good time. We laughed, we made jokes. that fun never took away from our ferocity in our commitment to our training and to our execution of our end goal. Like as we would succeed in competition, of course that remains to be seen, but in all of my in all of my witnessing, Jason.
Sorry, totally kicked the mic over.
Mike fell over. I know these things are awesome. They're giant. I love them. But in all of my witnessing of people that I worked with and myself and my own ability to learn anything, I learn at such a faster rate, and I enjoy the process so much more when I am having a good time with it, when I am less freaked out and white knuckled to those outcomes, and I'm more connected to that enjoyment of the learning process and fun and comedy with my friends as a part of and parallel to us kicking ass, working hard, being driven, being diligent, all of those things. So I really believe they're not mutually exclusive, and I really believe that fun magnifies that efficiency and ultimate success.
Absolutely. I completely agree. When we're in a more relaxed state, meaning we can accept some humor, put some humor out, and just be more present to our true reality, which is not ahead of ourselves and not behind our, not living in the past and just going, okay, I really don't have the handlebars here, I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. That is when things really become enjoyable and the stress goes away, and the pressures that we might put on ourselves otherwise to try and meet some standard of performance slip away, because the process of developing that skill set, that ability, is the fun part. It's not having achieved it. I mean, having achieved it it's part of that bigger piece, but it's really not the goal. It's the whole thing we talked about before. The goal, the journey is the goal. Being present while it's going on is the goal. So if we prioritize the completion of the project and that final check mark, then there we go again. We're like, okay, now what? It's over. I have to start over. So we might as well enjoy the actual part in the middle.
I know. It's like, I love how many times in our conversations we come back to, oh yeah, that's why we titled the podcast Trust the Journey.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh yeah. Like every time there's so many touch points of that. Trusting the journey allows us to enjoy it. It's not easy emotional, mental framing. It's not necessarily the easiest thing. Just trust the journey. Just fucking trust the journey, guys, and you'll have a good time, right? Obviously, we're calling into this conversation true emotional and mental skills, spiritual skills, So it's like, if you're not necessarily great, quote unquote, at trusting the journey, and I'm not in any way perfect at this, I really work to implement and wire my brain for that trust and that faith and that trust in the universe and all of that stuff. I'm a big proponent of that. So, but yeah, do I still feel stress and fear? Yeah, of course. And so that's when I work these skills so that I can get back to that more playful, open state. It's funny. One more thing I'll say about this is that one way that I can tell easily that I am freaking out is when I am not funny anymore. And look, I know not everybody thinks I'm funny, but I'm just saying, when I can't find humor in stuff around me, because I'm just such a lover of comedy. That's one of my great loves in life, and humor and lightness. And so when I find myself not laughing and not finding that humor and not able to make stupid jokes, I'm like, oh wait, I'm freaking out about something. What is it?
You're getting old.
I'm getting old, happening. Man.
When that happens, right? That's it. That's the perfect segue to what I wanted to touch on, is when we lose the ability to laugh about our own existence and where we are and what's happening to us, we start taking it all too seriously. We're getting old.
So
right?
True.
In a moment. It can be a momentary thing where we allow our mind to shift into this state of like, oh God, this and that, I'm old, it hurts, and the sadness and the worry and the pain and the agony and the self misery and all the stuff that we create in our mind in half a second, right? Like in half a second, we can switch between joyously, gleefully laughing at the ridiculousness that is this existence of life, or we can switch into this mindset of just being crotchety
Oh,
and
so true.
curmudgeon, you
Oh, so
know?
true. Yeah,
And
it's so funny the like laughing at the existence. I really believe that's one of my other core beliefs. Life is comedy. And I don't mean to keep saying comedy. That's just one of the like affirmations that I have used for many years. And I just believe and I see myself living into it because I find so much funny. And I know I could probably annoy people because I laugh at a lot of things, but it's real for me. It's
somebody needs to go back a couple seconds ago and freeze frame Melanie's face when she says that and then post it, okay? Because that was one of the best facial expressions I've seen so far. Yes, that was awesome.
well, and so that's the part of it too is like, okay, yeah, and that's part of I think being quote unquote adult is being okay with if that's real for you, whatever's real for you, being cool with that. And really owning that, owning who you have determined in your efforts for self awareness and your efforts for spiritual connection with yourself and your energy and those like minds and like hearts and all of that stuff, and really owning that. That's why I talk so much about and I love my friends who really embrace ridiculousness. It makes me think of my friend Kevin. I want to bring him up just because and I've talked about him before, and I taught a class on like comedy and how it is a core skill for life and achievement and happiness because I believe in this so much. And I bring him up because he has this weird, awesome love of wrestling, like fake professional wrestling. like, and it's so I laugh so much at that because he loves it so much and it's so insanely ridiculous, but he doesn't give a shit that nobody else thinks it's cool. He's like all about it, like his core peeps and his wrestling friends and, the things that they do for their town and they do all these funny videos. He loves it. And I love that about him. Like he's one of my really great friends, and I acknowledge his ability and his willingness and his courage to lean into the avenue of ridiculousness that he really likes.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I had another piece that I wanted to share on the relationship of the difference between getting older and staying younger in our what drives our decision making and how we view things. And that is a very, very simple question, and we've all heard it time and time again from children somewhere in the like 3 year old range, 2, 3 years old, 2.5. Why? Why? But why? And then why?
But
And
why?
it just why over and over and over again, because they finally get to this point in their intellect where they're able to we finally get to this point in our intellects where we are able to assess our circumstance and go, okay, I can see this and I can see this, but why the connection, or why does one interact the way it does with the other? And that choosing to ask why is such a childish curiosity approach to things. And you often, I mean, I can understand as a parent how quickly it completely run you down to have to try to answer why all the time. But I think that truly what you want to do is not answer why and provide the avenues for them to self-explore, to find the whys, and not just be the regurgitative answer machine.
Yeah.
But if you'd like to know why, you can find out why by looking down these roads. And as we get older, maintaining, like physically older, as we grow into our life and our maturity of existence in these physical bodies, that asking why is such a powerful process, because as children, we can ask why in relationship to some things that are really, really, really obvious to a child, but very hard to pick up as an adult. that you would just never even think to ask why. Like it's like so far removed from our everyday consciousness to ask, like, why red and blue compare the way they do,
Yeah.
but as we get older, the same thing happens where we reach points in the maturity of our consciousness where now we can also ask why in a sense that we would have never been able to as a child, but with the same curiosity.
Yeah.
So we can look at something that exists, whether it's ourselves or people around us or nature or culture or whatever it might be, and we can say, wait a second, why is that like that? What's brought it into being? Why is it currently existing? How it does, what it's doing. And we can have that curious child mind sense, but with a mature growth mind at the same time.
Yeah.
Whoa, hold on a second. My computer wants me to do an no, we don't want to do that. I want to update Zoom right in the middle of our call. No. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I totally, what did you just, I've just totally like lost my train of thought too. I was like,
Why?
I
Why
had
do you
this
want to update
amazing
right
point.
now? I'm in the middle of a call.
I
We don't
had
want,
this
no.
totally incredible point.
You're nailing it. The curiosity of, and this is where I'm finding my greater joys in life are coming from as a maturing man. Like my life now, I'm closer to 50 than I am to 40 now, and I feel that, right? Like I feel that. I'm like, oh man, the next big date is going to be a 50. That's going to really be the kicker, and that's a big mark in a human life. And I'm now able to look at myself in ways that I can say why and ask my own self, why am I feeling this way? Why am I thinking that way? Why am I acting this way? Why am I the way I am? Why am I who I am? What's brought me to be here now, this version of me?
Yeah.
And do I like this version of me?
Yes.
Do I wish to have a different version? Would I rather go from plaid shirt J to like, you know, uh, mountain guide J, and like go switch into some synthetics and get out instead of having this office podcast background. I could be coming to you from a handheld GoPro on top of a mountain somewhere and have a completely different version. It could also be that I dive into something highly spiritual, or I dive into something that's all based in education, or in serving community and becoming a member of that. Our support structure out there, our paramedics and our medical and police or whatever it is. I'm just like throwing examples at the wall just to show like how we can self-assess much more like our ability as we get older to stand further and further back and have an external viewpoint on ourselves and ask why is very similar to that child's ability to just stand objectively to something and being like, isn't just why is that like that, and just ask the questions and not be afraid to just dive into it and give it a go. And I love it. It's awesome.
Oh, I
That's
love
what
it
I
too.
wanted. That's why I wanted to bring that up, because
I,
I love getting older,
oh,
because I can see more about myself and the people around me, and I'm so much happier because of this ability of to like settling into self, right?
yeah.
And choosing growth when the opportunities come up and go, why am I doing this and this? Am I happy with how I just did what I just did, or not happy with what I just did, or how I acted, or how I responded, or what I said, or anything at all? Do I
Absolutely.
continue choosing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that positivity around the growth, that positivity and the mere idea that we literally, and this is some fucking meme thing, but I legit am into this, is we can literally choose at any moment to be someone new. At
Yeah.
any moment. And so it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, our whole everything about us is changing, but that reflective nature on parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily really dig or aren't making us feel super great about ourselves or are limiting our fun or are limiting our connectedness or are limiting our ability to feel light and free and happy and loved and all the things that we want in our life. It's so empowering to think that really and truly at any moment we can make a change. Is it easy? Who knows? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe somebody switches in their brain and they're just, boom, that state goes in the ground and everything is different from that point on. And maybe someone goes, okay, I have this idea. And then the implementation maybe is a little harder. And then they find strategies and tactics to make that change over the longer term. But the fact that it is available at all and always available in any moment is fucking empowering as hell. And I just can't not acknowledge that as an inspiration point when we're talking about something as valuable as playfulness and fun and that energy, bringing it to ourselves and our lives. So yeah, I mean, this is really, that's more a speech for the people who feel like they're really not having a good time. And they're like, man, I wish I did have more fun in my life. I wish I were lighter. Why am I so bummed out? Is it just that I hate my job? Or is my job okay? What is it? Why? Going back to your point of really
Yeah.
inquiring, but with openness, with no judgment. It's all good. We all have stuff that isn't working perfectly or is energetically holding us back a little bit. And so to be able to lovingly ask why and be excited about that as a growth experience, no matter what, that's pretty cool. Versus like, oh, if I find something, I'm a failure. If I find something that I'm not doing awesome, then I
Yeah.
suck,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Not judging ourselves, just allowing ourselves to recognize that it just is.
Totally.
That's just the state of things, and okay, whatever got us there is whatever got us there, but where we are right now can be whatever we want it to be going next if it choose positivity by saying, okay, and this is what I started thinking about as I was listening to you on that section was, maybe we take a look at ourselves and we go, man, I'm really not happy with a great big huge chunk of what's going on in my being, my life, my day to day. There's this whole thing, and it maybe may feel like too overwhelming to change because you're like, okay, this is it's my job, it's my relationship, it's all the things that are going on, it's my family, blah blah blah. Put on whatever you want on that list because that's for you to decide. But the reality is we need to make one step at a time. It's not like we're gonna like just pull one pin and everything's gonna come apart and we're gonna like, knock the house down, kind of pull out that cornerstone. We're just gonna have to make one step in the right direction and continue building that process of moving into a way of being, a way of living, our actions or choices that are going to serve us towards what we truly go, yes, yes, this does bring me the joy, does bring me the happiness, does bring me the humor. If it allows the humor and it allows that connection and it allows the trust, it allows all the things that we continue to reiterate, then we're choosing into the right kinds of actions, choices, feelings, beings.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely agree about the implementation and stepping forward into this stuff. I went to an event last night. I'm a member of a women's community called Lady Drinks in New York, and it's run by my friend Joya Das, and she brings in these amazing speakers and professionals and just thought leaders and stuff. And so it's always really exceptional content. So anyway, last night's speaker was this woman named Jen Groover. And her stories, I'll save the story, but long story short, in her presentation last night, she's had professional success and her path is inspiring in the sense that she took some big leaps in her path. And she has part of her story leading up to her biggest leap that was a lot of not doing that. And why I bring that up and why it inspired me to hear that last night is because I feel like I legit live in the realm of courage, and I like going for it. Like we started this whole episode. I like learning. I'm super with you on that. I get enlivened and I feel happy and excited by those experiences, no matter how they turn out. So what she said was about the basically the bigness of the leap, as in you might be taking leaps because she was doing the work, she was putting herself out there, she was taking big chances, but she wasn't going extra big. And so, and
Mm.
it's not necessarily the path for everyone to go extra big, but sometimes in life we can reflect on, is this a time for me to make a bigger change? And it isn't always the case that that is the case. You know what I mean? And for me, the reason it's inspiring is that is for me connected to my work. And like, what can I create that's really a bigger, courageous move for myself? So I don't know the answer to that yet, but it enlivened my spirit to even think about challenging myself past where I am normally challenging myself. Does that make sense? So, like, really looking and going, what might be past what I normally do? And so, anyway, we'll see. I don't know what that is yet. I'll keep you posted. Trust the journey. But I I just loved that idea and it made me go, yeah, cool. I'm going to take my curiosity and my connection to that idea and I'm going to explore that and see what comes from it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I've got a little blank spot there. Just kind of taking in the moment and letting it all ponder for a little bit. I've been really excited about this topic just because it is such a core element to what our mission here is, about growing up but not growing old. And growing up is awesome. When we're kids, it's when we just want to be grown-ups. You want to be grown-ups,
Right.
right? That's all you want when you're a little kid. I want to be grown up so I can do whatever I want.
Right.
And when we get grown up, you can do whatever you want. We can do whatever we want, right? We can do whatever we want. And the thing is to just remember that we can do whatever we want and to not let ourselves look at it from like an old mind where you're like, oh, I can't do that because I'm too old or because it's too hard or to hurt too much or it would take too much work or cost too much money or I've got too many responsibilities or putting some nomer on it that says, that this is the reason why I can't do it. Well, probably it's a lie. It's probably just an excuse. It's probably not true that you can't do it. I would say like 99.9% of the cases you probably can do it. It's just a matter of committing into it and taking the steps towards whatever we want it to be. And it's so funny is I was thinking about this topic the other day and I remember my like 6 or 7 year old mind back in like second or third grade or whatever I was in at the time, and thinking that typical question that, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, and the child just spurts out an answer, based on whatever their curiosity in their life at the time is, and it's unbridled, right? It generally doesn't have a lot of thought behind it. You're like firemen, because firemen
Right.
wear cool hats and they have red trucks, you know, and that's a great answer because they have cool hats and red trucks.
Right.
It's about the best answer ever, right? Like, I want to do this because I like that. And that's it. That's simple enough. Like if it's something that we like it and it looks fun to us because of the color or the shape or this whatever it might be, then that's awesome. That's all we need as an excuse to be able to do it. And we're grown-ups now. We can just choose into it.
Yeah.
It's
And I
awesome.
believe that's connected to our highest contribution to the world is that when we are really doing what we, and that sounds again so cliche, doing what we love, but really when we are doing what we like to do, what we love to do, and again, not in an unbalanced, reckless, that's always the caveat when talking about these life coachy things. I always want to balance those thoughts because they can be, I think, overused. And I want to make sure that our listeners can connect to the value that at least I see in a sentiment like that of like doing what you love really is a contribution. In my experience, it has felt doubly magnified in terms of its positive force in my life energy and my aura or whatever I'm putting out and I'm being in my life and in the world. It's because of that engagement with those things that I love and the energy that that gives me. It allows me to just be that. People can see it and go, oh, that's possible. Cool. Again, not that everyone thinks that about my version of leadership, but for the people that do, it makes me very happy to think that I am being of service to help someone change a mindset in that long list that you just put out there of like whatever limiting thoughts might be in the way, whatever societal thing that we've taken on that is adult, you know what I mean? That is what we should do or what society dictates that we do at a certain age, whatever. Like there's a part of me that really is hashtag fuck the system in all kinds of ways, especially with those mindsets that limit us from fun and playfulness and a certain version of life at whatever age that we are.
Were you ever? I'm gonna just totally swing around to a completely different point, but
Yeah,
coming back in again.
cool.
Were you ever a Trekkie? Have you ever watched Star Trek?
I no, I wasn't.
No.
But
Okay, so
I, yeah, no.
here's let me share something.
Yeah.
At some point in my youth, I thought Star Trek was super rad, and I used to watch like regular scheduled programming every week, and that was a thing. I thought I was probably like 18 or 17, 19, somewhere in there, where I loved watching Star Trek, and for me, there was an ideology inside of Gene Roddenberry's writing that fantasized about this utopian society in which everybody has the option to become anything that they want to be, and that society supports their education freely to become whatever they choose to find interest in, and in doing so, that everything that's needed for a society to thrive is filled.
Cool.
And so it's the that ideology of there is enough of us who find enough things interesting that if we just put all the right pieces in the right slots and create the opportunity, that everything will fall into a perfect state of balance. And I truly believe that. That is something that I'm a massive advocate for. And if we just allow ourselves to float towards whatever is what we feel called to, it's going to leave it, we're going to make an energetic path in that direction. We're going to fulfill a need that needs to be filled in some way, something that needs to be taken care of in this grander system of all things, and that's going to also affect the other energies around us, like electrons do. If one moves one way, the others move the other way, and that helps to align what's happening in the greater sense. So I truly energetically believe that the more of us that choose into the things that we find curious and interesting and passionate and what we love, if you want to use that, choose, do what you love,
Yep.
then we find the roles in this existence of our whole community called life, called Earth, called the universe, that in some way need filling. And so we need doctors, we need firemen, we need garbage men, right? Garbage women. We need people who are going to make sure that the waste that we create gets taken away, repurposed, reused. And some people are going to go, that's cool.
Yeah.
I like figuring out how to make waste go away, not go away, but how to make it all come back around again, and how to make it something that's actually a highly valuable resource,
Yes.
and turning something. And so if you have the wrong person doing it, if you have somebody who's like, get rid of this, make a big pile of it over there, it gets done the wrong way, right? And it doesn't actually serve the greater purpose of society. And if you have the right people choosing into it because they find it interesting and fun, they're going to find a way to make it something that's a value return for the world. And that's a most ridiculous example I could have ever come up with, is who's your garbage man or garbage person. But the right garbage person makes all this waste we've generated into raw materials, into
Yeah.
units that we can use to make other things, or into nutrients or fertilizers or building structures or whatever it might be. And the wrong person just makes a pile, and it pollutes and it damages the environment. So
Yeah.
choose into what you love.
Totally. I know we're running almost out of time, but I can't not mention AJ Jacobs wrote a book called Thanks a Thousand. And his mission, he does all these weird, quirky experiments. If we talk about someone following their passion and doing what they love, he's such a cool dude. Like, I really like him as a person. I don't know him well, but anyway, part of the Thanks a Thousand was thanking as 1,000 people that had some connection to his morning cup of coffee.
Oh yeah,
Right?
read his stuff or listened to him interview.
Yeah, so why I bring him up is he tells the story of meeting the guy who made the cover for a to-go coffee cup. and how he was so into it. And it was like that there's an indent for where your nose can go in because you need to have the aroma, because that's a real part of the coffee experience. Like this guy was into making these coffee cup, travel cup lids be totally epic. And he talked to AJ for however long about, and there was so much passion in this guy's, spirit around this coffee cup lid. So it's I just love that as an example. And we could go on and on. If you have any final thoughts, or
I
tell me, go ahead.
I have one more thing I have
I
to say
love it. I
because
love it.
you nailed it on the head. This morning, as I was waking up, I had such a full day of just incoming love and energy from so many friends, family, and beautiful people around the world sending me birthday wishes. And the thought that came to my mind was in relationship to one of my very favorite places on earth, and it's Norway. And they have a saying which is 1,000 thanks, and it's tusen takk. And you just hit it right on the head, because that's what I wanted to say to everybody who sent me love over the last few days. Tusen takk, I love you so much. It means so much to me. And I'm really, really just gratitude for all the people in the world. So, and all that love coming in and going back out.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, very quickly, let's share with our audience our new thing of what we're experimenting with. I'll keep this wildly short because I talked about it a lot on this particular call. I'm actually taking my very first improv class starting this Saturday. So I'll report back with how it goes and if I am funny or not.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm calorie counting right now. I have an app that I've never used before, which I'm like, okay, I'm going to lean on some external resource. I'm going to bring in a professional. I'm going to get this tool. And I am learning to get an idea of how much I actually eat, because I know I eat great food choices, but I know I eat too much. And I don't know how much too much, because I really have never counted it and really taken the time to be truly consciously aware. So I'm using an app called Noom, and
Nice.
I'm tracking my calories, and I'm learning to understand what my true diet looks like because of it.
I love that. I've used Lose It app for 10 years and it works
Yeah,
literally every single time I use it. So
awesome.
just an aside. Very cool. I'm excited to see how it goes for you. But yeah, okay, well, right on, family. Thank you guys
Thanks.
so much, as always, for being here, for being with us. If we keep saying it about the Patreon group, but that's just one of the things that we're working on as a goal, to get 50 people in there, and it's expanding the conversation, expanding the community. So if you have interest, please reach out to us. If you have any questions or if you'd like to join, go to our website, trustthejourney.today, and scroll all the way down, and it says donate, or I think it's an orange button, donate through Patreon.
Cool. Um, if you become a member of our Patreon group, we get included in our private Facebook group, and that is Trust the Journey Family, which is a bunch of people consciously choosing to join together to become part of a community that we are all creating, which is designed around positivity and growth. And you're going to find people in there who have positive attitudes, who want to have growth experiences. And the whole point of this is to connect each other together so that we can all lean on each other for a little laughter, a little support, a little love, and a little ridiculousness.
Amen. And if you are more called to just keep listening, we're just stoked you're all with us. Thank you so much for all the ways that you support us. We love you.
We love.
And remember, keep laughing, keep loving, and keep trusting the journey. Awesome. Good stuff.